and from two really great projects in the ecosystem. So I'm going to start out with those updates. Then we're going to hear from John Goodstock from biotara.earth and some of the really great progress that they've been making in working with indigenous groups in order to produce Brazil nut oil in Suriname. Then we're going to be talking or listening to Thalita and Davi talk about Gaia Green Tech, which is doing some amazing work tracking electronics recycling in Brazil and building Web3 native solutions in order to allow people to see where e-waste is going and build a circular economy. So first thing I have to update everyone about is the Sustainable Blockchain Summit, which is going to be happening on April 13th in Boston. This is going to be right after the MIT Energy Conference, and it's going to be an amazing event in downtown Boston. Please go to sbs.tech if you want to learn more about it, or get tickets, or to join the hackathon. I guess on that hackathon note, the hackathon has been running for more than a month now. If you have any questions about it, feel free to drop them in the chat. Orin, who runs the hackathon, is, I believe, on the call and can answer anything you have in mind. We have 400 people participating in the hackathon right now, which is pretty awesome. They're all building Web3 native tools at this intersection between sustainability and Web3. Some of the hackathon challenges use our tools, so CO2.storage, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Some of them use data from the Climate Collective and from Hyphen, tracking things like methane emissions over Europe and the rest of the world. Some of them use tools from Era and HBAR called I think someone's on someone doesn't have your Marcus, if you can thing off, that'd be great. Awesome. And so people are hacking on all sorts of different challenges here. If you want to join, there's about a week left, a little less than a week left. If you have interest in building any of these Web3 native tools for sustainability, there's a ton of different things you can build. If you also don't code, if you're just interested in this intersection between Web3 and sustainability, there are some no code or low code solutions or challenges for you. Things like just looking at methodologies and building schemas for those methodologies that can be used by the Guardian. So that's what's going on in the hackathon. And among the things that we're going to be doing at the Sustainable Blockchain Summit are the hackathon finale. So some of the really great speakers who are going to be speaking at Sustainable Blockchain Summit, who we've just confirmed or are in the process of confirming, Sam Flanagan from the Boys Club, Gregory from Regen Network, Christine from Zumo, Gloria from Supermodular, Nirvan from the Climate Collective, Maria from Concordium, Jason J, who's the head of the MIT Sustainability Initiative, Wes from HBAR Foundation, John from Toucan, Boone from Blockchain Labs, and Isha from the Celo Foundation. There are going to be a ton of other people who are also going to join us. Among the supporters that are going to be there, right? There are going to be representatives from a ton of different groups, right? Including the UNFCCC, the MIT Energy Club, and all of these great sponsors. And then, so some of the panels and topics of the discussion that we're going to have are firstly land and refi. So we're going to be talking about this intersection between refi and the actual land being stewarded by these projects. We're going to talk about ESG and refi. So much of the investment into this space is being driven by corporate targets for things like becoming net zero as a company. So we're going to be talking about how ESG frameworks can drive capital and investment into refi projects and Web3 native carbon offsets or renewable energy targets, or things like circular economy and e-waste management. We're also going to be talking about pathways to net zero. So there's going to be a demonstration by the Sustainability Initiative of something that they call En-ROADS, which is a model of global pathways to net zero. So if you reforest or afforest or protect trees or shut down fossil fuel extraction, what are different things that we can do globally, and how does that affect our global net zero pathway? Then we're going to be talking about renewable energy. We're going to be talking about producing renewable energy for Web3 systems, and we're going to be talking about using Web3 systems to track renewable energy and make what's called scope 2 emissions claims, so emissions associated with electricity use. Then we're going to talk about, like I said, we're going to have the finale for the hackathon that's been going on, which I think is going to be a great event near the end of the day, where we're going to hear from some of the people who have been hacking on some of these different challenge statements and announce the hackathon winners. The next thing I want to talk about was documentation for CO2.storage. So if you go to green.gitbook.io, a lot of great people who know how to use a microphone here. It's a lot of fun. If you go to filecoingreen.gitbook.io, there's a ton of new documentation. As you can see here, if you click on CO2 storage docs, there's a ton of new documentation about what CO2.storage is and how to use it. So, some examples are the data model tab, so showing how CO2.storage keeps track of types, how to set up your API and your environment file if you want to use the JavaScript API for using CO2.storage. There are examples showing how to search for assets in CO2.storage, how to create them, how to download new data. There's a section showing you how to build a React web app that uses CO2.storage, and a lot more examples here. A few of the things to highlight here are, so this shows that data model tab shows how CO2.storage works with data, right? So you have data types, schemas associated with those types that are all content addressed, and then assets themselves have both types and data associated with them. If you are interested in permissions, so allowing your scripts to actually interact with CO2.storage and get things done, this setting up the CLI tab has examples of how to actually set up your environment file, which is something that a bunch of people in the hackathon have asked about. And then if you want to actually set up a web app in which people can use their own credentials, so for example, their own MetaMask wallet, in order to create assets on CO2.storage through your website, this shows you how to do that, or at least get started with it. So yeah, a ton of really great stuff going on. And now we are going again. Sorry, Alexis. Again, now we're going to hand it back to John.
What the fuck? I think he's giving birth right now.
John, we're gonna hear from you at biotara.earth about all the awesome stuff you're working on.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. And again, thanks, Alan, for providing me this opportunity to share what we're working on at Biotara, and welcome everybody. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is John Kutzhalek, and I am the founder of Biotara, and previously I was executive director for conservation NGO. And what I've been doing for the last couple of months is actually taking what I've learned there and bringing it into the private sector and working with, among others, Alan, to integrate Web3 functionality into the business concept. So let me start by stating that I live in Suriname, which is a very small country on the northeast coast of South America, but it also just happens to be the greenest country on earth, most forested. We have over 93% forest cover, 93%. So we are carbon negative, we are biodiversity rich, and we are one of the last places on earth where the ecosystems are still fully functional. And it's my mission in life to keep it that way. That's what I've been working on for the last 12 plus years, and it's what I've dedicated my life to. Now, one of the things I've learned is that to me at least, one of the things that I've seen is that one of the absolute most effective ways to protect forests and ecosystems is by creating livelihoods that are in balance with those ecosystems, because it's the stewards of those forests that look over them every day. And sadly, if they have to cut them down to feed their children, that's what they're going to do. There's really no other way to say it. But when you enable and empower these communities with sustainable livelihoods that are in a balance with nature, then it works out really well. And I actually saw this working in this very small indigenous village in Suriname called Alapadu, where me and the team I was leading at the time built this Brazil nut processing plant and helped the community set up this company, which is owned by the community. And at the same time, it is protecting 235,000 hectares because of the conservation agreement linked to that factory and that business. That 235,000 hectares is absorbing 191,000 tons a year. All wildlife trafficking has stopped in that region, and gold mining has been prevented. And what's made all that possible is that the community income has increased by 150%, and the employment rate is up by 87%. So this works. Creating jobs helps ensure the protection of nature. So after having set that one up, I said, okay, so what else can I do? How else can I contribute to saving my country? How can I take this bright spot All right, you have some audio artists on the line. That's cool. So in any case, so one of the things that I've looked at is how do we scale? So what we did is we mapped out where there are other species of trees that can also provide valuable oils. So we found about 4 million hectares spread throughout the country. And what we found over the past years is that consumers are increasingly seeking out climate-friendly, nature-based health products, right? So that's driving a shift in ingredients used in the cosmetics industry. And that is moving to what's called cosmeceuticals. So cosmeceuticals are cosmetics ingredients with scientifically proven healthcare benefits. And that's what these different oils are actually, what they fit into, the category. So these oils are 100% natural. We've got about 4 million hectares of underutilized domesticated forest where these trees grow. And initial calculations tell us that if you can get just 7% into production, that's 40 million liters. So then the next question is, how do I actually do this?
I just have a question. What if it was thrown down not to 100%, but to 90%, so like Victor's?
We're going to do questions at the end of John's presentation. So if you could hold on to that, we'll come back to that.
Cool. Right. So with these communities, we have an opportunity, right? But we need to make it actually happen. We need to roll it out. So I said to myself, what's the very best business replication model that mankind has come up with so far? And as far as I can tell, it's franchising. So what we've now done is to package all the different elements that I've learned over the past 7 years are needed to be successful in building these kinds of community-owned businesses. And we've packaged it into one formula. So we are offering to the communities, of course, on a voluntary basis. They can participate if they'd like to. We offer access to capital, access to markets, and access to technology. And when I say technology, that ranges from training and certification all the way to helping build and roll out the wallets that we envision them using for a financial transaction, as well as the value chain tracking. So every step of the way has to be tracked. And the idea is to do that on chain and of course, store that data on IPFS. So we believe that providing these three elements to those communities, they can actually engage the market at scale. Now, I'm currently in a fundraising round. We don't have to go into that too much, but this is kind of where we are. Now, the financial model is that I'll charge 25% to the franchisees that wish to make use of our services. So 75% goes back to the community-owned business, which will be a franchisee in the future. And within that 25%, we make business, which will be a franchisee in the future. And within that 25%, we make everything else happen. $4 billion market by 2030, of which I intend to service about 1.6 billion. And over the next 10 years, grow to about current industry. You've got suppliers that are either extractive or regenerative, low volume or high volume. And on the extractive side, getting tired of putting on their face, and the monoculture plantation-based oils that are fueling deforestation, which in many parts of the world are going to be outlawed. So then when you look at the regenerative side, so far there's a lot of smallholder production, and that's great, but it's scattered. That will be community co-owned, fully traceable, carbon negative, and biodiversity positive. And we know these companies need it. One of the companies that we've spoken to has actually said that they need 95% of their ingredients have to be coming from bio-based by 2030, and that's L'Oreal. As far as I can tell, the largest cosmetics company in the world with $35 billion in revenue. So this is what my current sales funnel looks like. We've been talking to a lot of these folks. We've got some preliminary orders coming in. We've got some requests for quotes coming in. So we're really starting to enter the market here with this new type of product, but we're still building it as we go, right? We're still building some of the software, still looking for some of the software solutions out there, because I imagine there might be some out of the box or within the broader ecosystem. With Filecoin, we're hoping to get really close to getting some wallets that are deployable to the communities, and hoping to get the track and trace system as close to complete as possible. Now, as I said earlier, we're doing a fundraise. We don't need to go into that too much. This is what we're looking for. And we're also looking for strategic partners in the cosmetics industry. And one of the main things that I kind of touched upon earlier is that there are key market developments that are pushing companies towards these types of products, not just the consumers, but also regulatory demands. So the type of traceable journey that we're envisioning will be a key determinant of suppliers that are able to provide into Europe, certainly, but probably also other markets as that kind of develops. And when we're successful, we'll have 100 new franchisees, which will lift 10,000 vulnerable families out of poverty. We will have protected 4 million hectares, and those 4 million hectares will be sequestering 3.2 million tons of CO2 every year, which is the equivalent of keeping 1 million cars off the road. This is a team that's going to make it happen. And really what we're looking for is partners to generate healthy value. And that's how we do it. The end.
Amazing. Thank you, John. Or the beginning, or the start. Yeah, no, that was great. You know, I think like this point, right, that people don't want to deforest, right? But if they have to if they have to choose between feeding their families and cutting down trees, versus not feeding their families, like they're gonna choose to deforest, right? And you know, being able to give people pathways, right, to make a living and protect nature, I think is like entirely what the name of the game is, right? If people have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, either in Zoom or in the YouTube chat. We're looking at both of those. I actually didn't know about that that EU ban on deforestation linked goods. I put a link to a Guardian article there. Do you want to talk a little more about that and like kind of what that means for the world?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So as part of the green package, I believe, or the Green Deal, the EU Green Deal, the EU Parliament in December of last year passed legislation that actually bans commodities that you cannot prove are not linked to deforestation.
Bro,
so I'm framing it very carefully here because there's a reverse burden of proof. So when you bring in a product, you have to prove that it's not linked to any kind of deforestation, as opposed to the other way around. So the default is it's linked to deforestation. Prove to me it's not, and that's where I believe blockchain comes in, right? An immutable record that's publicly accessible and transparent, that we can actually show every step of the way, and we could also take the broader view, looking at the area, and then of course making sure that everything's stored neatly in a decentralized manner.
I think that the like reverse burden of proof,
super important.
Makes a lot of sense and is really cool, right? And you can like very much see how that really is kind of calling out for refi type solutions, right? And being able to, like you're saying, like really show like the provenance of different products as they move through a supply chain, and allow you to prove that. Yeah.
Right. So one of the things I touched upon it there is a lot of the palm oil, for example, that's used in cosmetics, in food, comes from places that have been deforested and then been turned into monocultures. So we know that a lot of those supply nodes are going to break off or going to no longer be accessible for EU products, certainly. So that's why we're in such a hurry to get to market, to make sure that we can be there and offer these solutions to these companies, because these companies have pledged as well. And they're going to just need these products to keep servicing their consumer base.
You gave me a sample in January when I saw you. It's the
Yeah, that's right.
oil, so you can scan the back and see the provenance of it. What I think one of the things people are wondering about, right, is like, you said sort of in general cosmetics and food and stuff, but like what should I use this for? Or like, do I find Brazil nut, like, do I come into products in my daily life that use Brazil nut oil? Like,
I'm fairly certain you do. So Brazil nut oil is used in some of the better cosmetics or personal care ingredients like shampoo, lip balm, because Brazil nut oil is incredibly how do you explain that? It's like it's got a lot of antioxidants and it's got a lot of selenium in there, which is also a really important part of what our body needs. So in terms of minerals, so there's companies like Weleda, Schwarzkopf, Dove that are already using Brazil nut oil. They've been doing it for decades now. You look at companies that have even built their entire brand on it, like Natura and to some extent the Body Shop. So Brazil nut oil, the way I gave it to you pure, you will seldomly find that. You will seldomly find the real pure Brazil nut oil. It's usually processed into different products, like I said, shampoos, conditioners, lip balms, facial creams, you name it. And we've got 9 other species which are at least as amazing as Brazil nut oil in terms of skin care, in terms of avoiding aging, all of these different things. So I'm seeing a question here in terms of the carbon credit element. So yes, there is a carbon play here. I am not putting that front and center because I have been in the carbon credit game, so to speak, for the past 12 years. And I know what it takes in terms of money and time and frustration. So I very specifically designed this business model to be non-dependent upon carbon credit revenues. So the business model is feasible and healthy on its own. But we do know that because of the protection elements that we've added to it, there will be significant carbon credit opportunity. Now, will we be able to turn that into revenue? Time will tell. But important to me is that we don't need it to be sustainable. We don't need it to get off the ground because we can't keep waiting 1, 2, and 3 years for these carbon credit processes. And that's really what you're talking about oftentimes. So.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for telling us about Biotara and all the really awesome.
Well, maybe just really, if I have 1 more minute, I do want to just kind of say that the grant we got from Filecoin Green Foundation has been instrumental in us getting off the ground and starting to develop our MVP, but also in ensuring that the Alalapadu village that I showed you was kept intact because they were in a tough spot last year in terms of sales, and Alan and crew came to the rescue, and we were able to really support that community in an amazing way. So also for them, I just want to take a second and thank you again, Alan and team. You're on mute. So.
Yeah, and thank you, Orion, who runs the grants program, and of course the Filecoin Foundation, who's able to support a lot of what we do. Awesome. All right, well that was great. Can we switch gears now to Thalita and Davi? And can you tell us what you're up to?
Hi guys, yes, you can
Please
speak,
go.
Davi.
Okay, guys, my name is Davi. I'm the software developer of Gaia Green Tech. We are creating a Web3 solution for recycling e-waste and tracking the waste during the whole process of the recycling, from the gathering of the material until we have a new credit to be emitted for these institutions that are interested on recycling. And I'm going to pass the word to Thalita just to make an introduction about the company so we can carry on.
Davi, if you can share the slides, I appreciate. Hi everyone, I'm really glad to be here. with you guys today, sharing more about Gaia. Gaia increases waste recycling rates. We integrate sales, logistics, and recycling partners into our platform. Then we engage the consumers to find the delivery channels for their old electronics, from headphones to fridges, and offering the choice of home collection or delivery. Electronics manufacturers use Gaia results to offset their recycling targets, provided for Brazilian legislation. Also, recyclers amplify the volume of electronics through Gaia, and we ensure sustainable disposal and generated the recycled e-waste credits, that is recycled tokens that we are developing with Filecoin. Then we reward the consumers and remunerates all the chain. And this is about our project, and Davi will show more about this. And we created Gaia because we can find proper channels in Brazil to properly disposal to our electronics. And searching more, we found a global problem, and we can stay waiting for resolution and start creating our solution with Gaia. And Davi will show more about how technology can improve the recycling rates using Web3 and blockchain. And Davi is with you.
Okay, I prepared a way more technical presentation, talking specifically about the technology that we are developing. So if you guys have any doubts, any questions about the technology itself, I will be answering it. So the very first thing that I'm going to say, just repeating what Talita said about the company. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yeah, all good.
Yep, okay. So the challenge here is to find to create an entity that is responsible for the whole process of recycling waste here in Brazil. We already have this process developed for other sectors, but specifically for waste, we have some problems regarding the consumer, the lack of the channels for the disposal, the logistics for getting this disposal waste through the recyclers, and also the interest of the manufacturers that they are seeking for getting credits for the waste that they recycle. And everything needs to be complied with the legislation. And so we are developing a Web3 platform to provide all of that. So we are, as Talita said, we are creating the first recycled credit token for the market. This is using some of the technology that I'm going to show. And this makes it easy for everybody to be rewarded according to how many waste they provided for us. Also, they interested on buying US credits. So let's talk about specifically for the technology. What are the requirements that we have? The e-waste credit is valid for 2 years here in Brazil, according to the legislation. So if you acquire some credits in any form, you're probably going to have them for the 2 years after you got them. So to do that in a Web3 manner, we need to create a time-based smart contract that is able to automatically burn the tokens after this period. Also, they require some legal documents to be provided as well with the credits. So also using the NFT that we already know how it works and how you consume that to provide some legal documents. Also, one of the requirements that is different from other Web3 products is that some of the documents require a legally valid signature to be allowed to be counted as a e-waste credit. So we provide also an authentication system that is integrated with our official government authentication system. And this provides us the legal requirements that we have. So also we have the figures of the external validators for these credits. It's important for the industry that we provide this infrastructure for outsiders to be able to check the documents and see if everything is according to the legislation, because the legal system already envisions these personalities, but there is no practical way that these people all really join the system today. And this way we can make the same figure of miners for common cryptocurrencies. We can create independent auditors for those documents, and anyway, providing all of the infrastructure regarding for the legislation. Also, most of the credits are bought by UTC directly with the sellers. So this is another major problem that we are facing, because recyclers have a very small institution that represents them, and it's very hard for them to find exactly how much the credit costs, because there is a lack of liquidity, and it's very hard for them to have a market price for these e-waste credits. So by providing the Web3 solution, it's easy for us. If we have the liquidity, it's easy for us to determine the price. And what we are using about the technology for the the time-based contract, we are using Chainlink oracles for determining how long the token will be valid for. For the metadata, we are using Filecoin, the common metadata storage for NFTs, and also the documents that we need to provide it. For the authentication, we use a GovBear. It's the authentication mechanism that the government uses to sign the documents officially. And what we are creating is the last part, the independent auditors, the broker, and finding the liquidity pools for other recyclers to be provided for the companies and the manufacturers that are seeking for e-waste credit. So our time, we already passed for a lot of the validation parts for this technology. We already have some of the legal structure that's missing. It's something that takes a bit more time for us to solve. Also, we are seeking the payment integration with fiduciary coins, not only cryptocurrencies, to make it easy for the companies to acquire those coins directly. And we are also having some legal issues to define exactly how much we are going to charge and find a payment provider. We have some legalism in Brazil that prevent everybody to turn themselves into a financial institution. So we need to take care exactly how we are going to proceed with that payment. And we are at the point that we are seeking to do the very first end-to-end transaction with all the documents and getting out of the testnet for the blockchains that we are using and stuff like that. So after that, we have, of course, the marketing and the interfaces that we need to do. It's very important for us that we educate the market, that we are providing the services, because it's some very old companies that are not familiar with blockchain technology. So it's important for us to educate themselves and explain how everything works before we start just offering the liquidity for e-waste credit. I believe that's it. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the time. And also thanks, Thalita.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. That is really cool. Thank you for walking us through all of that. Like, I think one of the really cool things about the like opportunity that you've identified, right, is that there already is a legal framework for enforcing these like circular economy standards in Brazil. So it's really clear what you need to do in order to comply with that, because like the government's been super clear. How like, can you just like start from the end and work backwards a little bit? Like if I'm selling electronics in Brazil, like what do I have to do right now to comply with the current laws that are being passed, and how is that going to change in the future?
It's important for you to understand that we are providing a third-party institution to solve exactly this bridge between the Web3 technology and the legal system that we currently have here in Brazil. By doing that, we are able to put it in every single country that has their own legislations and their own requirements. So this boundary is still accessible for other countries different than Brazil. So for us today, there are three main documents. I believe that Thalita could speak way better than me. There are three big documents that we have to provide. Also some smaller ones that are checked time to time again. And if you please, Thalita, explain exactly what are the documents that we need to provide.
The most important thing, I think, like Alan said, if law have modifications or other countries, is have the traceability, because the laws is based in traceability. Then we can change the documents, but the traceability is the key in the Gaia system. Then if we change the documents, the traceability is here, but we will upload other documents. Then we have an end-to-end solution, because we bring the electronics customers and delivers at recyclers. Then we close the loop and have the all information of all entire chain is our way to work, and we can spread of other countries in this model with a little adaptations.
That's really cool. And so that's sort of the like specifically, like there's a set of documents I need to like submit. What do I like if I sell like 100 tons of electronics in Brazil, my understanding is there's like a certain number of tons I need to recycle, and that amount is going to go up over time. That's sort of how it's set up right now. So it's like I have to sell like if I sell 100 tons, like I have to recycle or like cause to be recycled like 15 tons or something is like
precisely.
It's and then it's like,
yes, have a percentage about the electronics sold in 2018 is the base number, and the rates will increase until 17 until 2025. Then we will increase, trying to get 100%.
awesome. That's really neat. And so that's like a way of, I think that's a really clear need, right? Where because there's this existing legal framework that like requires a lot of really small scale coordination, right? Like dealing with like individual people's like phones and appliances and whatever is like, that's a hard like logistical challenge, right? So it's like, it's easy to kind of see how this is a really good target for taking a Web3 system and like applying it to this problem. If people have other questions, like feel free to drop them in the chat too. I think another thing is you've already recycled e-waste, right? Like what's the current like state where you are sort of on the ground, and like as you're building the Web3 like tracking system, and you're sort of like meeting where you are with currently like working with recyclers on the ground, like how's that process going?
We recycled 25 tons at now, and we are having a really good numbers, because when we compare with the other big companies that is trying to start the consumer collecting, Gaia in one small city is doing the same at the logistics campaigns. Then some big companies is calling Gaia to help them to increase their numbers. I think that the transparency, the kind of communication that we adopted is engaging a lot of people when we compare with the other solutions.
That's really cool. How does this work like from the point of view of a consumer? So if I have a phone that's, you know, old, right, and I'm gonna replace it, like how do I interface with what you're doing?
So for now, we are currently not working directly with the consumer. The idea of having some electronics at home and disposing them and receiving the credits seems to be kind of obvious for us, but we need to solve the logistics and the next part, providing the liquidity for people to buy those credits. So that is a balance that we need to do, and we are opting for focusing more on people buying the credit and selling the credit online to provide the liquidity. Then after, we are going to provide the rewards for those who want to dispose their electronic devices in a correct place and stuff that makes them able to be recycled. So it's just an opting for the road, because we had this thought before that, okay, we might start by rewarding the consumers, but if we do not provide the liquidity for those tokens to be sold, they're probably going to crunch in price. So if somebody has some mobile phone at home and there is no one on the other side that is interested in buying that phone for the amount of credits they're going to be purchasing, there is no interest in us to start by their point of view, you know.
So I'm also wondering about the role that liquidity pools play in this, and I wanna like take this pretty big picture framing, right? Which is like a lot of these market-based mechanisms for sustainability, like I think they often work really well when they're pretty narrowly focused, right? So like things like or you know, a lot of like collective action around sustainability in general like has this property, right? Like combating like the ozone hole or acid rain, right? Have these like really narrowly scoped missions. And I think renewable energy sort of falls into that more narrowly scoped area. Carbon offsets, right? They're like not super narrowly scoped. And I think that's a lot of the problems with them is people have different goals and it's not always clear how to weigh those goals against each other. And that introduces a lot of complexity into the system that can like cause problems, right? And then like on the biodiversity market side, no one's really sure how those markets are going to be designed yet, but there's the potential to make them very broadly scoped in a way that I think like me and a lot of other people are concerned about, that if they're too broad, that's going to cause a problem, right? But so like with electronics recycling, so the idea is like you're making a certain weight of electronics sold in Brazil fungible with a certain weight of electronics recycled in Brazil, right? So like that's the scope of the liquidity, right? Can you like explain that a little more?
And the idea here is to remove the in Brazil part in the next couple of years to be able to provide for some credit that is recycled anywhere in the world, but sold in the same platform. So it's the same token. The price will be stipulated on exactly the same balance, and people will be able to buy credits from even other countries. But before we are reaching that point, we are trying to be extremely precise regarding the legislation here in Brazil, because the legislation here, despite of being very complex, and not a complex in a way that it's hard to be applied, but it's not applied at all most of the times. Most of the entities that the legislation provision, they do not even exist right now. They do not appear anywhere. There is nobody providing that service. So we are trying to do what the legislation says right now. And after we do that in a perfect way, that the government say, okay, we are good to go, even decided that we are the official way to be providing and counting these e-waste credits. After we get to that point, then we are going to be expanding for these parts like, okay, we want to having for example, the consumer benefited about the tokens, and having other countries integrating with our e-waste as well and stuff like that, so we can move on to these more broad objectives. But this is the idea. When you start to take in the picture, you see how broad it is as well, how big the market is, and there is nobody playing on that market as well. So it's a blue ocean right now, and we are working very hard to be very precise on this legislation. So once we get the approval of the government, we can move forward in a very fast way.
That makes a lot of sense, and it's super impactful, right? Being able to get a lot of these electronics out of landfills is like both matters a lot for environmental damage and pollution, and also the ability to mine less because you're recycling the materials that are already in these electronics, so you don't have to mine more, gold or copper or whatever materials you're after. So that makes a lot of sense. It looks like there aren't any questions in the chat, so thank you. Oh yeah, Pete. Yep.
Yeah, I'll go one quick question. Davi, your platform, could that be applied to, and maybe you said this, to other types of recycling like plastics, truck tires, other produce? Yeah,
technologically speaking, yes, and but there is some differences according to the legislation that each country observes. For example, here in Brazil, we have some very specific rules for plastic, but the plastic industry is way more structured and has way more compliance figures that are able to maintain their legislation working on. And we are doing this for e-waste only right now. But technologically speaking, we already talked about this before, and that is the idea of we migrating for other institutions and other sectors for providing the token as well. But technologically, yes, it works exactly the same way for every single market that is that requires this traceability and this legal integration, like the recycling market, carbon, plastic, and even other ones.
Well, rubber is a huge problem. The landfills are filling up with car tires, truck tires.
Yes.
And we have discovered a technology that will allow us to take a truck tire and take it down to a rubber crumb, which then has a lot of other uses in road making and so on and so forth. But I really don't want to build a platform myself, so I will send you an email to ask a little bit more about at what stage is your platform ready to be manipulated for other types of products. Thank you. This is really interesting.
The solution platform is the same, but to making work, we have to contact the operators that will do the recycling, and it's more about this than the technology and platform, because we have to build the ecosystem to process these materials and expand to other materials beyond electronics. Is more this idea. But I was reading about Europe. They have targets bigger than Brazil now, and a lot of other countries is starting do things like Brazil to compliance the law and trying to increase the recycling about other materials too and electronics.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you heard it here first. Web3 tech is good for tracking Brazil nut oil, electronics recycling, and rubber crumbs. So it's all good. Thank you everyone for coming to our March meetup. I think we're going to turn the YouTube streaming off in a second, and a few of us will just hang around in the Zoom chat in case anyone wants to have any other conversations. But thank you so much, and please come to the Sustainable Blockchain Summit or tune in to the live stream. You can get more information about that at sbs.tech, and it's going to be on April 13th, so in a little less than a month.